All new today.
Texas is about to kill somebody who didn't commit that murder.
Dr. Phil's exclusive interview from death row continues.
Did you murder Stacey Stites?
No, I absolutely do not.
Do you know who did?
What happened to Stacey?
This is a female engaged to a cop, a white cop.
Jimmy Fennell was initially the key suspect in this case.
He's an absolute monster.
Did he ever have an inkling that you were in a relationship with her?
He told me, "You're gonna pay."
So it was a clear threat.
I took it that way.
No court has given any credence to any of this.
What the evidence shows.
The forensic evidence shows that Mr. Reed's guilt is impossible.
Why you?
I feel like I was just an easy target.
Did you buy that, what he just said?
Yeah, I'm buying some of it.
I think he put a mind virus on you.
Is an innocent man about to die?
There are even some people in Stacey Stites' family that believe you're innocent.
I don't believe that he murdered Stacey.
The clock is ticking.
With all this evidence, he must be free.
In a small Texas town on April 23rd, 1996, the half-dressed, murdered body of 19-year-old Stacey Stites set off a bizarre chain of events that mysteriously ended with 2 more people dead and 1 man on death row. When DNA was found in Stacey that matched a 28-year-old man named Rodney Reed, the prosecution told the jury that the DNA was the Cinderella slipper. The DNA matched Rodney's, they said, so therefore Rodney was the murderer. But what if it's not that simple? I traveled to Livingston, Texas, to death row to visit Rodney Reed. As we get 1 day closer to his execution, Rodney explained why they've got the wrong man, because he insists he is innocent. Take a look at what happened yesterday. Did you rape Stacey Stites?
No, I didn't.
Did you murder Stacey Stites?
No, I didn't.
He's accused of rape and murder, and sure enough, his sperm is inside her body. That seems pretty damning.
Until you start looking at the totality of the relationship between Rodney and Stacey.
How many times did you two see each other?
Some weeks I would see her maybe once or twice a week.
Did other people know you were having a relationship with her?
Yes, friends and family members of mine.
Do you know Alicia Slater?
No, I don't.
Stacey and I hung out at work. She wasn't that excited to get married because she was sleeping with a black guy named Rodney. I was, wow, Stacey, you need to be careful.
So you have no doubt that Stacey was in a relationship with Rodney?
I have no doubt.
None of this is what was told to the jury.
The prosecution told the jury Rodney's DNA was a match. In your opinion, does that make him the killer?
There's no way this guy could have committed this murder unless you can put him back in the apartment. But we know, through the physical forensic evidence, that the murder actually took place in this apartment.
The body was found. There was a lot of lividity from here up, right? So I think he left it over the top like this.
She absorbed almost like 16 ounces of fluid.
We're talking about this full of water.
Right, even more than that.
3 medical experts say it's impossible for you to be the killer. They say if she died of anything, it was drowning.
They have the truth. They know the truth.
Dr. Cyril Wecht is a renowned forensic pathologist joining us to tell us what he discovered.
I have concluded that there is no way that the timing that is necessary for the prosecution to have brought this case has any kind of validity. This is one of the clearest, unequivocal cases of travesty of justice that I've ever seen.
Just when you thought you heard it all, there's a twist to this murder mystery. When I sat down with Rodney, I asked if he ever met Stacey's police officer fiance, Jimmy Fennell, who many believe is Stacey's real killer. They believe that based on evidence. Here's what Rodney had to say about running in to her fiance, Jimmy. Did you know who she was engaged to?
Jimmy Fennell.
Did she ever caution you about him?
Well, we had a conversation because the young lady that I was seeing at the time, her brother was a sheriff's deputy with Jimmy Fennell.
I see.
And she told me that Jimmy found out that he would kill her. And when she said it, I took it more or less as a figure of speech. I didn't take it as nothing serious. You know, like,
oh, he would kill me.
Yeah, like when you're young, you say, like, if you come home late, my mom will kill me, my dad will kill me. So I just took it as a figure of speech, and next thing you know.
So it wasn't a really dark thing when she said it. It was just kind of figuratively. You'd really be upset.
Right, that's the way I took it.
Did he ever have an inkling that you were in a relationship with her?
There was a time where a cousin of mine, we were together on the North End. He pulled up with another sheriff's deputy in a fast drop sheriff's car. And he told me, "You're gonna pay."
So it was a clear threat.
I took it that way.
Rodney's attorney, Bryce Benjett, says what troubles him the most is law enforcement's failure to fully investigate Jimmy Finnell, a man who has a history of violence against women.
Attorneys for Rodney Reed claim Jimmy Finnell killed his fiancée, Stacey Stites, back in 1996.
Finnell went on to commit a separate violent crime.
Finnell has now pled guilty to kidnapping and improper sexual activity with a woman in his custody. Despite failing 2 lie detector tests when asked if he killed his fiancée, Finnell was ruled out as a suspect.
The real killer is Rodney Reed. The individual who raped and murdered her is properly on death row.
Well, Jimmy was released from prison last year, but his victim, Connie, says she will never forget what he did to her.
On October 27th, 2007, my fiance and I were arguing outside a friend's house to the point the neighbors called the cops. The 5 cops showed up, and one of them was Jimmy Finnell. I saw Jimmy Finnell speaking to the other 4 officers, and then the other 4 officers took my fiance away. I was real upset. I was telling Jimmy to take me to my fiance. Jimmy drove me to a wooded, secluded area, and he opened the door and asked me to step out of the car and dance for him. When I told him no, he grabbed me and slammed me up against the back of his patrol car and shoved my face down against it. He took his holster patrol belt and grabbed his weapon and held it against my head. I thought he was gonna kill me. Instead, he raped me. Just have 1 minute, please. He drove me back to the apartment. He handed me one of his cards and told me that the next day after his kid's soccer game, he was gonna come back. He told me he would kill me if I made any 911 calls. Jimmy Finnell is absolutely capable of rape, killing, covering it up, pretty much anything. He's an absolute monster. And I honestly think that if I would have fought him, he would have killed me that night.
Well, Connie, thank you for being here. I know it would be so much easier for you to just stay home, mind your own business, not be here and talk about this, but it means an awful lot that you're willing to come here and talk about it, so thank you for that.
It's no problem.
You obviously believe that he is capable of doing this kind of violence and more. That's your point, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that he's very capable of it.
What did he say to you when it was all over?
That if I told anybody, he would kill me.
But you did tell.
Oh, absolutely, I did. It was a police officer. Those are who you're supposed to be able to turn to, you know, when things go wrong. They're supposed to protect you. And here's this cop who did the total opposite. And if you do that to me, then you absolutely will do it to others if you haven't already. So I knew I had to stand up and say something.
Well, after you called 911 and the police came, what happened?
I took off running from them, where they chased me on foot.
And who were these cops?
Jimmy Finnell was one of them.
So you call 911, the police respond, and it's your rapist.
Mm-hmm. And the best part of it is 911 told me they never dispatched any police officers.
They just heard it on the radios.
They heard it on the radio.
And got there before the ambulance.
Before the ambulance did.
And you said they got you and put you in the car and forced you to say something for the in-car cameras.
Yes.
What did they force you to say?
They told me that if I would look in the camera and say that I made the attack up, that nothing would happen and they'd let me go. So I did.
Why are you here today?
Because I know that Texas is about to kill somebody who didn't commit that murder.
All right, coming up, 2 beer cans were found at the scene of the crime, and they had DNA on them. They did not match Rodney's. Rodney's going to tell us about that next. Plus, Jimmy Finnell's attorney is here, and we have a lot of questions for him next, and I'm sure he's got a point of view that he's going to share. We'll be right back. There's 2 people involved here. There's one whose DNA is on beer cans close to where the body is found. Another that's investigating the murder has concluded it's not you. Both of them are dead. What do you think of that?
Monday. She says her teenage daughter went from straight-A cheerleader to suspensions, smoking, and sexting.
I smoke weed, party, fights. I'm a teenager. What else am I going to do?
You said, I'm doing what normal teenagers do. Drugs at school, suspended 40 times. That's not normal.
But who's to blame for this bad behavior?
Well, here's a little cheat sheet for you. You can't quit being a mother.
That's Monday. Then on Tuesday, his girlfriend covers for him.
He's punched you in the face.
And his mother was willing to lie to the police for him.
Can I tell you why?
Do I look like I care why?
New Dr. Phil, Tuesday. Dr. Phil's Rodney Reed exclusive continues. What happened to Stacey? What the evidence shows.
In 2001, while in prison, Rodney himself discovered in his pile of court documents a DNA analysis of 2 beer cans found at the scene where the body was discovered. Here's what Rodney has to say about that. When they found her body, there were 2 beer cans that had DNA on them.
Yes.
And those beer cans were tested. And the analysis of those beer cans excluded you, but 2 other potential suspects, a former Bastrop police officer, Ed Salmella, who's now dead apparently by suicide, who his brother says he doesn't believe it was suicide.
Neither do I.
And then there was also a police officer, David Hall, who was a good friend and neighbor of Jimmy's.
He's still alive.
And he's still alive, but he could not be excluded by those.
He couldn't be excluded.
Okay. Joe Bryant was a gentleman who was conducting an unauthorized investigation into Stacey's killing, and he was supposedly gunned down by a migrant worker from Mexico. What do you think of that?
I honestly think that they used the Hispanic guy as a scapegoat.
Well, Joe Bryant's widow, Maria, has made the statement that before he was killed, he told her straight up that he thought the killer was Jimmy Finnell, and shortly thereafter he was shot and killed.
Yeah.
There's 2 people involved here. There's one whose DNA is on beer cans close to where the body is found. Another that's investigating the murder has concluded it's not you. Both of them are dead. What do you say to yourself about that?
It looked like a cover-up to me.
Well, Bob Phillips has been a criminal attorney for over 40 years. He represents Jimmy Finnell, and he's here along with Rodney's attorney from the Innocence Project, Bryce Benjett, retired NYPD Detective Sergeant Kevin Gannon, and victimologist Dr. Lee Gilbertson. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. This doesn't look good for him, obviously, in light of being suspect in the case of Stacey Stites.
What doesn't look good for him?
The fact that he has a violent history with women in rape, because it means that behavior's not totally foreign to him. Would you agree?
Well, you produced one case, and he pled guilty to that particular case. Frankly, I was hoping we would go all the way to trial. I thought we had a very good chance to win that case, and he is now out, and he's a completely changed individual. He's actually in Christian ministry now, and I know the skeptics in the audience are probably snickering. I would be too, had I not met him 10 years ago, and now today.
Well, in fairness, I have to say I have seen jailhouse conversions that You know, they're like foxhole Christians.
Well, I know they're irrelevant to whether he did this offense.
But then I've seen those that have really taken stock and seriously changed their value system and who they are and how they think and how they behave for the whole rest of their lives.
And I know it'll take several years to determine if this one's
Exactly.
real, but I happen to believe it is.
But that comes after the fact that someone has been killed, and there are people that think that he may be the one that did that. And there's no direct evidence that he did, and I'm the first to say that. There's also no direct evidence that Rodney Reed did.
Well, there is actually, or at least plenty of circumstantial evidence. There were 6 women waiting in the wings to testify about his violent rape of them.
You will acknowledge he's never been convicted of any of those, and there are other complaints against your client as well. So you want to talk goose, we'll talk gander. We'll do that after the break. The assault cases that they have brought up about you in the past were accusing you of raping a 12-year-old girl. Did you ever rape a 12-year-old girl?
No, I didn't.
So why have you been accused of multiple situations of sexual violence?
Dr. Phil's Rodney Reed exclusive continues.
More than 20 years after her sister's murder, Deborah Oliver says her family has been silent long enough.
Jimmy is not guilty. He didn't murder my sister.
But another family member, cousin Heather Stobbs, was disowned after supporting Rodney Reed.
Everybody says, ooh, there's DNA. They stopped, and they didn't look at anything else.
Stobbs says Reed deserves another trial.
We'll meet Stacey's cousin Heather later in the program. We reached out to Stacey's sisters, and although they didn't want to be part of this discussion, which I respect and understand, they wanted to make sure people understood their position regarding Rodney, and they provided us with this statement. Over the past 20-plus years, an elaborate story has been created trying to blame my sister's murder on her fiancé. The stories supporting Rodney always fail to tell the whole truth. They don't mention that Rodney had been accused of rape before, but he was acquitted of that case because that victim was his, quote, secret girlfriend. They fail to mention that he is indicted in several other rape cases. They fail to mention that 6 months after murdering my sister, Rodney attempted to abduct a woman. That victim was able to get away and identified Rodney as the man that attacked her. Rodney Reed is a brutal rapist and murderer. My sister was young and in love and getting married. Her life was taken by Rodney Reed. We are confident that the right man is on death row. Stacey's sister's position is that Rodney has a violent past. Yet he was never convicted of any other charges, nor was he indicted on what she said he was indicted on. When I sat down with Rodney, I asked point blank about his past sexual assault allegations. Here's what he had to say. Now, do you have any idea why they zeroed in on you to begin with? Because they had to test that DNA against yours in order to know it was you. Why you?
There was other allegations before in my past. That was not true, because I didn't do any of that.
What were the allegations in the past?
Assault cases.
The assault cases that they have brought up about you in the past were that you have assaulted other females, and they brought some of those to court, right?
Yes, they did.
To make those allegations, including accusing you of raping a 12-year-old girl.
They were accusing me of all that stuff.
Did you ever rape a 12-year-old girl?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever have any kind of contact with a 12-year-old girl?
No, I don't do that stuff.
So why have you been accused of multiple situations of sexual violence?
I believe jealousy and anger played a lot in that. I can't tell you what goes on through a person's mind to make them say certain things.
Why were you never charged? Why were you never convicted of any of those things?
That's something that the state would have to answer. They brought that stuff in to make it appear, I guess they were trying to dehumanize me the best way they could in front of the jury.
So these cases that they brought up where they said you had assaulted other women, you're saying none of that is true?
None of that's true. The charge has been dropped, dismissed, I've been acquitted. In fact, we have been trying to get the DNA testing done on that stuff.
So you're not trying to hide anything here. You're saying if you got those allegations, bring them out.
Yes.
Did you buy that, what he just said? That it was all about people being jealous and, I mean, is it going to be racism? Is it jealousy against Rodney? The world's out to get him? Why do 7 women come and testify, ready to testify in his death penalty case? And some of them did in the punishment phase. In the hashtag MeToo generation that we live in, why are these women not being given any credence whatsoever? Why are we going to believe this guy?
Dr. Phil.
Well, hang on. No, he asked me a question. I want to answer it.
That's a preposterous theory. And it puts...
How do you... Wait, what the hell?
Dr. Phil's Rodney Reed exclusive continues. What happened to Stacey? What the evidence shows.
In the hashtag MeToo generation that we live in, why are these women not being given any credence whatsoever? Why are we going to believe this guy?
Dr. Phil.
Well, hang on. No, he asked me a question. I want to answer it. Am I buying any of that? Yeah, I'm buying some of it.
I mean, I think he put a mind virus on you, personally.
Yeah. Well, let's just see whether he did or not. Because I think you're a very fine lawyer, and I think you present one side of the story, and your story goes a hell of a lot better when you're the only one telling it. No, I'm serious. But if you think that I think that this is a choir boy, and I think that, gee, he's just unlucky, they just go snatch him off the street every few minutes, I absolutely do not think that at all. And if you watch that first episode, you heard me say at the end, you're getting ready to learn some more things. You're going to learn some things about Rodney you don't know. I get that this is not a spotless individual. And I said to you, with what we know about your client, and you cut me off quickly in your best cross-examine mode and said, what is it we know?
I didn't say that.
Yes, you damn sure did, and I've got the tape to play it back if you want to hear it. You said there's one thing we know about my client.
One case is what I said.
Let's see. June 9th, 04, police report says he pulled over for a crooked license plate and asked where they worked at a strip club, asked to go to a secluded area. It's not like I'm going to rape you or anything. August 11th of 07, allegedly planted drugs in a woman's car, pulled into the bushes, looked at her chest. January 3rd, 2008, asked, what are you willing to do to get out of this? Tried to kiss and hug. She told him to just get it done. February 19th, 08, asked if he could bend her over a couch and have sex. I mean, police report, police report, police report, police report. No charges, no indictments, and no convictions. Just like Rodney Reed.
But the difference is he never tried to deny, like Rodney Reed did, that he even knew the victim. I just think that ought to be factored in. Another thing, I don't know if you want to go into this now, but the timetable that you've spent a great deal of time on where she couldn't have been killed at that particular time. The key witness to refute that happens to be Stacey Stites' own mother, who lived in the apartment complex with Jimmy, testified at the trial, jury believed her apparently, and she was living downstairs, Jimmy and Stacey living upstairs. She heard the door open when Stacey left for work at 3 a.m.
She heard Stacey open the door?
She heard the door open downstairs at 3 a.m.
But not who opened it?
Correct.
Okay.
But she would have to be complicit in the killing of this woman, of her own daughter, for that theory to work. It's important to recognize...
How does that make her complicit in...
Because the theory that you guys are advancing is that she had had sex with Rodney 48 hours earlier, right? That's what I heard in episode 1. And we are then to believe that she came home, didn't shower, and went to work. That's a preposterous theory. And it puts...
How do you... Wait, what the hell? How do you conclude that she would have come home, not taken a shower, and that makes her mother complicit in her murder?
Because she's in the place where supposedly Stacey got drowned in the bathtub upstairs in the hours preceding that door opening. She's downstairs. She hears the door open.
By somebody.
Okay, so we're to believe then that Jimmy strangles Stacey in the bathtub upstairs.
Don't know.
Runs downstairs with her, throws him in her truck, and then stages this crime, goes back to his apartment without Carol hearing this time that the door's opening. It's ludicrous.
Did not the
and no judge, no court has given any credence to any of this.
Well,
not one.
I don't connect those dots the way you do, and I don't know who killed this woman, but I know this. There is a lot of doubt as to whether Rodney Reed did. And
not in the minds of every appellate court that's heard the case.
Coming up, new witnesses have come forward and given affidavits that don't reflect well on Jimmy. We'll hear from them, plus we'll let these gentlemen respond to what this able gentleman has been talking about.
Dr. Phil's Rodney Reed exclusive continues.
During this time in prison, have you been surprised at how much support you've had from the community?
Yes, but I think the people support the truth.
There are even some people in Stacey Stites' family that believe you're innocent.
Yes.
Were you surprised that there are family members that have come out in your support?
Again, it goes back to the truth. I believe the people, the family, the other supporters support the truth. Why can't you support the truth?
For 22 and a half years, almost half of Rodney's life, he's been locked up in a tiny cell for a murder he says he didn't commit. Right now, he's actually on death watch, which means the lights are never turned off. He's watched 24 hours a day. Now, there are some new witnesses that judges and appellate judges have not heard. There's an insurance salesperson that has filed an affidavit. In November 1995, Stacey made the remark, quote, "I really don't know why I need life insurance since I'm so young." In response, Jim, in my presence, told her, "If I catch you messing around on me, I will kill you, and no one will ever know it was me that killed you." Jimmy's ex-girlfriend's affidavit, he was verbally hostile to me, called me mean names, screams at me in public. He didn't like me going out with my friends. He was extremely prejudiced. He told me everything he thought about black people. They were all bad. Sergeant Mary Blackwell, he made a comment if he ever found that his girlfriend was cheating on him, he would strangle her. I looked over my shoulder at him and said, "Well, if you do that, they'll find your fingerprints all over her throat." And he said, quote, "I'll strangle her with a belt." Now, County Sheriff's deputy affidavit, I distinctly remember standing in the doorway to the viewing room next to Jimmy Fennell. Jimmy was looking at Miss Stites, and Jimmy said something along the lines of, "You got what you deserved." It's a leap from that to murder. Those things were murder, but he wasn't much of a fun date.
Well, I give credit to the great legal team that he has for continuing to find and creatively utilize these people that are coming out of the woodwork 20 years later. I love the one about the life insurance.
Dr. Phil, I got a lot to say, and some of this I can't quite figure out, so can only respond to what I can. And I appreciate the praise that Mr. Phillips gives us, because what we do at the Innocence Project is really try to get to the truth of the matter. And we've been as transparent as we could. You know, certainly Mr. Reed had agreed to talk to you. You know, we have not heard from Mr. Fennell. He took the Fifth Amendment before the trial when he was a suspect.
He testified in the trial back
exactly,
in 96.
after Mr. Reed...
He didn't need to testify again.
After the finger was pointed to Mr. Reed is the only time that he decided to waive that privilege. Jimmy Fennell was initially the key suspect in this case. We have a number of inconsistencies in what he told police, his best friend, a career law enforcement officer, about where he was.
Who appeared on CNN and later retracted his testimony.
He did not retract his testimony.
In your courtroom.
And he affirmed every bit of his testimony.
Well, the judge didn't buy it. I was sitting there watching.
Let him finish. He let you talk.
I think we're getting an idea of what's going on here. I mean, we even heard from Miss Lear, as brave as she was to come out here, and then the first thing that Mr. Phillips does is try to minimize the responsibility that Jimmy Fennell was taking for that. We want to get to the bottom of this. The forensic evidence shows that Mr. Reed's guilt is impossible.
Didn't Jimmy take polygraph tests?
Yes.
He took 2.
I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2.
He took 2.
Okay.
And in both of them, he was asked directly. They were one-issue polygraphs, which tell me...
9 questions.
And, pardon me?
There were 9 questions, which is not an appropriate way to do polygraph.
There's one issue, right? And he failed both of those tests, correct?
I'm not sure whether it was 1 or 2. Was it 2?
2. Doc, he only failed one question. The question was, did you kill Stacey Stites? No. That's where the failure came in.
Yeah.
So
can we all agree
that... those are not admissible for good reason. Yeah, we have to take a break. Some of Rodney's supporters are here today. Rodney's mother, Sandra, his brother, Roderick, and Stacey's cousin, Heather. We'll hear from them after the break. It's scheduled now for November 20th.
Yes.
But what do you say to yourself about this?
I'm like Rodney. I'm not entertaining it right now. I just can't do it. All the evidence. He must be free.
Dr. Phil's Rodney Reed exclusive continues. What happened to Stacey? What the evidence shows.
Now, Rodney says he's learned to let a lot of things go, but it's the little things he misses the most. Take a look. Do you have anger about this? Do you have, I mean, you've been 22 and a half years in here for something you say you didn't do.
Something I didn't do.
Are you angry about that?
Initially, I was coming into prison, but then you have to let go of that anger. You can't live like that. I see it this way, that things that you have no control of, don't try to control the things you have no control of.
You said you miss the simple things in life. What are those simple things that you miss?
I mean, just being out and about, taking long walks, being able to see the moon, being able to try and count the stars.
How long has it been since you've seen the moon, since you've seen the sky?
Well, sometimes we got these little windows with these little slits where we can look out. And sometimes I'm looking out, you can't see them because of the angle that the building is. And you know they're there. I know they're there, though, but you just can't see them.
And now you're scheduled for execution in a matter of weeks. Take me inside your head now. What's going through your mind?
The love for my supporters, my friends, my mother. As long as my mother, she's standing up and staying strong, you know, I have to stay strong.
Are there times when you actually contemplate that this is scheduled and the number of days you have left in this world, the number of weeks that you have, you can count on your fingers?
Well, I really don't entertain those thoughts. I mean, when you ask me about it like right now, and I do realize how close it is and how short time is, how short life is, really. It's a serious matter, but I try not to entertain that.
Well, Rodney's mother, Sandra, his brother, Roderick, and Stacey's cousin, Heather, and Rodney's attorney, Bryce, have been fighting for Rodney for a long time. This has been very difficult for you, obviously. It's been 22 and a half years.
Yes.
It's scheduled now for November 20th.
Yes.
What do you say to yourself about this?
I'm like Rodney. I'm not entertaining it right now. I just can't do it. I'm holding on to faith, the truth, and that's what we're here for, the truth, to get it out here.
Do you believe he's going to be set free?
Yes, I do. I have to hold on to that. Yes, I do. He must. All the evidence. He must be free.
What do you think about this, Roddick?
I think that right out of the gate, my brother didn't have a shot. I think this case is a prime example why they should abolish the death penalty.
That's right.
Because it is so corrupt. It is racist. It is biased. And all those things have played a major role in my brother's case.
Yes.
And we stand here today saying that we are tired and the state of Texas ought to be tired because one life is too many.
Well, Heather, you think he's innocent, but the rest of the family sees it differently, right?
Her mother and her sisters see it differently. There are a lot of cousins that agree that at the very minimum, he should have a new trial.
Right. And do you believe that he murdered Stacey?
No, I don't believe that he murdered Stacey.
Why not?
When this first happened, even her sisters were suspicious of Jimmy Fennell. There's a note that her sister wrote that details points that they were concerned about. And I don't understand how they went from that to where their belief is now, her mom and her sisters.
This gets stranger
Yes.
by the minute when you dig into it. Coming up, Rodney's final words to me and my thoughts and comments. We'll be right back. I want you to pick up your voting apparatus under your chair, and it's time for you to decide, do you think that Rodney is guilty of murder or not guilty? I was only allowed 1 hour with Rodney. My time was coming to an end, so I wanted to give him the final word. Take a look. If you have a message to say, what is it?
I am absolutely innocent of this case. I absolutely had nothing to do with Stacey's death. I want to be a father to my kids. I want to be a grandfather to my grandchildren. I want to be able to be the son to look after my mother and the brother to my brothers. I want to be a part of my family and my friend's life.
And to be very clear, did you rape and murder Stacey Stites?
No, I absolutely did not. No.
You had nothing to do with it at all?
Nothing to do with Stacey's death. I wasn't with her that night. I had absolutely nothing to do with her death.
And you said that they didn't want to bring in, if there's DNA evidence in these allegations against you for other sexual assaults that they're throwing up against the wall, you're saying, let's bring all that forward. Bring that, if there's that DNA evidence, we have technology now that they didn't have then. You're saying, let's bring that out now. Let's find out if that's right.
Let's test it. Don't fault me for anything that you have done.
Are you glad that you've done this interview?
Yes, I am. I appreciate it. I'm glad we did this. You're telling us we have to stop. We will stay in touch. God bless you. I appreciate your time. Thank you. I'm curious what you guys think. So I want you to pick up your voting apparatus under your chair. And it's time for you to decide, do you think that Rodney is guilty of murder or not guilty? You press 1 for guilty, press 2 for not guilty. All right, polling is closed. We have the results.
I'm curious as to who the 1% is.
Bob, I won't ask you how you voted.
Thankfully, there are courts for this kind of thing.
Right, exactly. Let me tell you what I think about this. This is not a perfect system. To say that it is just foolish. There are people on death row that have been executed and later exonerated. This should not be one of those. I don't think it's a question of whether he's guilty or not guilty. I think the question is, has he had a fair trial with a full airing of all of the evidence? And I think the answer to that question, in my opinion, is not just no, but hell no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of my guests today. Bryce Panjett of the Innocence Project, thank you. Kevin Gannon, Dr. Lee Gilbertson, and Attorney Bob Phillips. A special thanks to the Alan B. Polonsky unit in West Livingston, Texas, where I interviewed Rodney, and a very special thanks to Senior Warden Michael Butcher and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. If you want to get more information about today's show, let me know. I want to know what you think. And you can also get more information by logging on to the innocenceproject.org. Also, Sandra and Roderick started a change.org campaign for Rodney called Stop the Execution of Rodney Reed. So we'll have a link to that on our social platforms and website as well. You can leave me a comment on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I read these on the air sometimes, so be careful what you say. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.